We hear in our gospel text from John that on that last Thursday night of Jesus' life, that he took hold of their feet. That after supper, we're told, he leaves his place of honor. He girds himself with the towel, the servant's towel, takes the basin and the water, and then takes hold of their feet. I don't know if we realize how radical that act was. In Jesus' culture, no one, not anybody, washed anybody else's feet. Even the servants who were paid to help travelers come in with dirty feet from the road, they would give them the basin and the water and the towel. That was their job. And then each person would wash his or her feet. Jesus does take the posture of the servant by taking the basin and the water and the towel, but then he takes hold of their feet. It's anathema. Peter even declares it. You're not going to wash my feet. He could have added, nobody does that in our culture. Feet are considered a degradation of the body. You always keep them on the ground, even today in the Middle East. It's considered rude to cross your legs so that people can see your feet. But Jesus took hold of their crusty, dirty feet, washed them clean. Have you ever taken hold of someone's feet? You've likely done that only because you were either paid to do it, because you're a podiatrist, or because you are a pedicurist, or because you really love the person. Those are the only reasons why we take hold of someone else's feet. When I was in the second grade, I was adventurous with my brothers and my cousins. One day we went just gallivanting in the woods, that we would call it the swamp, running around playing cowboys and Indians and army soldiers and whatever would come to our mind and our imagination. And we were tromping through hill and dale and through water and muck. And on one point of the afternoon, I literally ran one of my feet into an old dirty stump. Just ruined it. Ruined my right foot. I mean, look down, it was total mess. Somehow I got home. Luckily, my mother was there. We went straight to the doctor's office. And in those days, you didn't go to the emergency room quite as often, so went right to the doctor's office. I still remember at age 7 or 8, my mother held my foot, this bloody, messy foot with wood crammed into it, held my foot for at least 3 hours for that doctor to painstakingly pick the wood out of my foot. The fact that at 65 I still remember every detail tells you that it was a significant event in my life. I don't know that I ever knew my mother's love more than that act. To hold my dirty, bloody foot for 3 hours while it could be made well. Jesus took hold of their feet because he had an unconditional love for them. Later, we'll gather at these basins. You have hand sanitizer in the pew. This year, because of the craziness of the pandemic, we're going to shift our posture of servanthood from the feet to the hands. It's an act where you and I would take upon ourselves that we would address germs in such a way that we wouldn't pass them on, that we would love one another by doing such an act, just as Jesus took hold of feet. But what does it mean for us to follow in the way? One of the great authors of the 20th century was fairly unknown, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. That's quite a name, isn't it? Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He had already written a number of good books by 1940, when, as an airman, he kept volunteering for airstrikes against the Nazis. Dorothy Thompson, who happened to be one of his American author friends, wrote him and said, "Exupéry, stop volunteering. It's very dangerous. You are an exquisite writer, and we will need you to write following this terrible war." He wrote back and said that he disagreed with her, that no one had the right to write anything after the war unless one participated in its suffering now. He kept volunteering. He wrote, Dorothy Thompson, in that note, "One must write one's love with one's body. One must write one's love with one's body." The next airstrike, Exupéry was shot down and was killed. Never wrote another thing except he wrote his love with his body. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said a similar thing when he came to New York in 1939. Went to Union Seminary and began to teach, and was a month into his second stay in New York City. He decided that he had made a terrible mistake, that all of his countrymen, all the men and women who were going against Hitler and Nazism were all back in Germany, and here he was hiding out in New York. He wrote his friend Reinhold Niebuhr a note saying, "I cannot stay. I do not have a right to be part of a new Germany when the war is over if I don't return and be with my people during this great struggle." You and I are called upon to write our love with our bodies. What does that look like in our day? The person who goes to the end of his or her rope for a child or a teenager so that they can work their way out of a ditch, out of a bad place, knows about the serving posture of Jesus on Maundy Thursday. The small group who gets together and says their prayers and starts something new for those who are disenfranchised, for those who are left out, for those who are left behind, for those who are on the edge of our societies, so that they can belong and come into the middle and find a place of beloved community. They know something about the serving posture of Jesus on Maundy Thursday. The person who goes to Salzbacher or to the local soup kitchens or to St. Mary's and bags groceries for those who are hungry, they know something about the serving nature of Jesus. The medical personnel and first responders and those who took care of us in so many ways during this past year, where they put themselves on the line, know something about the serving posture of Jesus on Maundy Thursday. That we put our words into the flesh. We write our love. As Exupéry said, we write our love with our bodies. Years ago, I heard when that my retired bishop, the Right Reverend Tom Fraser of North Carolina, was dying of cancer at Duke Memorial Hospital. I went to see him one Saturday night. I walked in to Bishop Fraser's room. I wish I could paint this for you, but there was not 1 inch of the room that was not covered with flowers and notes. Flowers and notes were all over the place. They completely covered the walls. They were on every cabinet. They were in every windowsill. They were hanging from the ceiling. It was remarkable. The pink lady, as we used to call them, I guess we still have them in hospitals. The pink lady came around with another cart full of flowers and notes and letters, packed. There was no room to put them. She carted those flowers in, looked at the patient in the bed. I was there in a chair. She said, "Who in the world are you?" Bishop Fraser said, "I'm just an old slob who's dying of cancer, eating cold hospital food. But I'm loved," he said to the lady. "But I'm loved. I've tried to serve as best I know how during these years, and now I'm being served during my final days." And then he said to both of us, "I'm blessed." That's the end game, isn't it? That's the reason why Jesus gave us the new mandatum, the new commandment, the Maundy, Thursday. I want you to love one another as I have loved you. How did he love us? By taking hold of crusty, dirty feet. An anathema in his culture. But love does that. It goes across all kinds of lines, breaks all kinds of rules, goes against all kinds of decorum to extend grace to another just because that person is a child of God. Exupéry was right. To cast ourselves into the future means that we, in the present, are called upon to love one another, to right our love with one's body.